In one important sense, it's incorrect to say that capitalism doesn't work well in third world nations. For the capitalists, it works much better in Indonesia than it does in Denmark. The rate of profit and capital accumulation per dollar invested in Indonesia is 4, 5, 6, 10 times higher than it is in Denmark. Obviously, if you can pay people 15 cents an hour, 12 cents an hour, instead of having to pay them, as in Denmark, with benefits and all that, many, many dollars an hour, you're going to be making much more money. The public sector is smaller. Regulations are less or non-existent or very poorly enforced than they are in, say, the Western European or North American countries. Their goal is the third worldization of everywhere. That's the goal of finance, international finance, corporate capitalism, the third worldization of everywhere. Their goal is to get us back to 1900. I, as a corporate capitalist, every dollar I've got to spend on stupid, annoying, frivolous, unnecessary things like wages and health insurance and pensions and occupational safety and environmental protection. Every dollar I've got to spend on something idiotic like that is one less dollar for me. When will it stop? When will my oppression stop? Now you want seniority rights, now you want collective bargaining, now you want vacations, now you want paid vacations. When will this stop? Until you drag me into total poverty, until I have nothing left on my estates? Okay. So capitalism worked much better. Capitalism worked much better for the capitalists in the United States and Canada in 1902 than in 2002. And that's why they're trying to get us back there. Okay. Now, the people of the world don't necessarily take this expropriation of their land, their labor, their markets, their natural resources. They don't take it with a happy smile. They're often represented that way as smiling, just playing music a lot. But they fight back. They organize. For centuries, they have been fighting against this imperial colonial expropriation. And for centuries, the European powers have been murdering them and killing them and using state-sponsored terrorism. For centuries, the European powers, and then later on the North American powers and Japan, went in there and expropriated the land, the labor, the natural resources of Asia, Africa, Latin America. And they went in there because those countries were not poor, they were rich. You don't go to poor countries to make money. You go to rich countries. They went in there for the hemp, the flax, the cotton, the copper, the coffee, the iron, the diamonds, the gold, the oil, the oil, the oil. Can I say that 3 times? Okay. They were rich countries, and they still are, many of them, rich countries. Only the people are poor. The countries are rich. And you look then at the Middle East, and you see this terrorism emerging that's called, well, these countries have been the object of state-sponsored terrorism for generations. And the global system of U.S. global imperialism has destroyed democratic and popular reform movements in Pakistan, in Turkey, in Syria, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Yemen, in Iran, in Iraq, and in Afghanistan. Popular democratic movements in country after country destroyed. And so what do the young people have left? People who look and see their societies being destroyed, their cultures being undermined. They move toward a religious totality. They move toward an apocalyptic confrontation. They decide they must attack the demon who's doing this. Lacking a class analysis, they think in terms of national units. It's not the United States, it's not the Americans who are doing this to them. It's the ruling interests in America who are doing this to them, and they're doing it also to us Americans back in the States, I can tell you. Let's look at Afghanistan. Well, the U.S. has convinced the U.S. public that Afghanistan was a war to stop Soviet aggression. In fact, the Afghan government was a left military government that took over against a rightist government that was purging the left. And then it found itself under siege from Pakistan, from surrogate forces from Pakistan and from the CIA that moved into Afghanistan. That government was targeted. That government was doing unacceptable things. That government was doing what the Torrijos government in Panama had been doing, what the Nul Jewel government in Grenada had been doing, what the Sandinista government in Nicaragua had been doing, what today the Hugo Chavez government in Venezuela is trying to do. That government was indulging in land reform, putting in minimum wage laws, legalized labor unions in Afghanistan, put up public education programs for boys and girls, which was an unusual thing, and the like. That was the Soviet-supported government. The Soviets came in after repeated requests by that left military, and then came this very ugly war. That government was doing what the United States leaders will not tolerate anywhere. They will not tolerate any government in the world that is attempting an alternative system outside of the globalization process, outside of that system of U.S. multinational, transnational, global finance capitalism. Outside, even another capitalist country that's trying economic nationalism and developing itself on its own terms, even that will no longer be tolerated. That was tolerated. When there was a Soviet Union, that was tolerated. When there was a Soviet Union, Yugoslavia was tolerated. It was a country that was a buffer against the Soviets. It was independent of the Soviets, often critical of them, but it also was socialist. With the overthrow of the Soviet Union, the ruling interests in Western capitalism have come to certain realizations.